Hello again, everybody. Hope you're doing well. So, as you can see, I've got a new addition to my garage, and it is a scooter. I'm going to tell you guys about it, show you around, and there's a little story about it as well. But first, why have I bought a scooter? Well, basically, I wanted something for my partner to ride because last summer we were going out for rides on my bike, and yeah, it was okay, it was fun and everything else. But my bike's got quite a small engine. It's only a 125, and whilst it will do it, it's it's not very spacious and it's not very powerful, and it's just not as much fun. I thought it'd be much more fun if we both each had our own vehicle. We can go for little rides out together and stuff like that. Luckily, in the Czech Republic where we live, it's possible to ride a scooter automatic on a car license as if you have a full license. So obviously, I went out looking for something for her to join me on rides, and here it is. Now this is a Yuki Jet. It's not a brand name, so obviously with things like Suzuki is the brand name. Yuki isn't actually the brand name, it's the importer name. This is a Chinese scooter, so obviously they sell them in various different markets around the world, and what happens is each country has its own importer, and when they import these Chinese scooters, they put their own branding on it. So the actual brand is like a Qingyong or something like that. You have to forgive my terrible pronunciation. But anyway, yeah, it's a Chinese scooter. Now, obviously, being Chinese, yes, the build quality isn't amazing compared to a Japanese one. However, my reason for wanting this is obviously just for doing little trips around the local area, just popping out on a nice sunny day for a coffee with the other half. So, I don't have huge expectations out of it, as long as it, poodles along. Obviously, I've done a lot of work on it to improve its reliability, so which we'll get onto in a minute. But anyway, let's carry on. So yes, it's a Yuki Jet, and it is a 50cc single-cylinder two-stroke using a copy of the Marini AC engine, which is the same engine you'll find in Suzuki Katana 50, the Suzuki Address. You also have Italjet 50cc scooters use the same engine, SYM scooters use that engine, TGB scooters, and a whole raft of other Chinese scooters all use the same engine. It is a clone, but the parts do from the original Marini engine do fit as well. So obviously, because the engine is used in so many different scooters, or at least was, it's real easy and cheap to get parts for, which is great, and also very convenient for reasons I shall get onto in a minute. So anyway, let's have a look around. Styling wise, I actually quite like it. Some of these Chinese scooters, they can be a bit funky looking, but this actually, to be honest, looks pretty much almost Japanese. I mean, it kind of, actually, funny enough, I say it looks Japanese, but it actually reminds me of a French scooter. So my first ever scooter was a Peugeot Speedfight, and at the same time they also did the Peugeot Jet Force. Now, the lights on this kind of remind me of the Jet Force, but the overall length of the front and everything reminds me of the Speedfight, so that kind of amused me slightly. Otherwise, just the general styling of it, the curves, actually not so bad. I quite like this sort of wing on the back as well, which doubles up as a carrier rack, and quite a sturdy one as well, I must say. So yeah, styling wise, actually not too bad. Obviously, we'll work away from the front to the back. Brakes, very, very basic. We've got a single pot caliper and disc brake at the front, and at the back it's just a drum, so nothing to write home about there. But again, 50cc, it's not particularly fast, so its brake system is more than adequate for what it is. Moving around. Obviously, very, very simple display and everything here. We've got our analog speedo. There's a light here to warn us when the oil's getting low. We've got our fuel gauge, all of which works, by the way, so that's a good thing. Indicators, light for our high beam switch, indicator switch, start button, lights on and off, and that's it really. Back brake, front brake. Obviously, it's an automatic scooter, so nothing crazy. Here, quite nice and convenient, we've got our filler cap, and also I've got an electrical connector in here because this this battery cover here is quite strong plastic actually, but to get into that you undo a screw and then you have to pull this off, but the tabs are quite stiff, and I'm kind of worried if I do it too many times I'm going to break them. So what I've done is just make my own kind of quick connect for stuff like, you know, testing the battery voltage and topping it up over the winter when I'm not using it, that kind of stuff. So that's pretty convenient. I think originally there was kind of some kind of helmet hook here, but that's gone. So yeah, nothing to look at there. And down here, there's just the cover for the VIN number. So then moving on to the back, as I said, this sort of rear wing, which also acts as a plate holder for top boxes and stuff, all metal, actually very strong. Quite impressed with that, which is quite good. So that's all right. And then, of course, as with most scooters, we have under-seat storage, which is very, very handy. As you can see, it's quite deep. It's actually quite a decent amount of storage in here, which is nice. The only thing that does annoy me slightly, so you'll see this here obviously is the tank for the two-stroke oil, and you can see how this is sort of even deeper. They've created a thing so that you can put a helmet in there, and then if we look at the seat up here, there's the indent, which again is designed so a helmet would fit under there, except that it doesn't. Even my half-face helmet, it'll fit in sideways, so this doesn't get in the way. This is actually designed so that the helmet sits in like that, and it does. But even so, the height, even with this and with this, it just, you can't close it, so that's kind of useless. It's not the end of the world, because obviously, you know, we have got top box, which does take a helmet, so no issues really there. It's more of a minor thing than anything else. You know, you've got a decent amount of storage under there for a bit of shopping or something, but it's just, for whatever reason, you can't put a helmet under there. But hey-ho, can't complain too much, especially considering how cheap it was. So there we go. And yeah, then again, at the back, we've got relatively sporty-ish style lights there. Single suspension unit here, and then that's about it really. Specifications, obviously 50cc two-stroke. Now originally in its restricted form it had, I think, something like 3.5 horsepower and a restricted top speed of, I think it was 45 kilometers an hour, which is, what is that, 26 miles an hour? Yeah, quite slow. I have taken the restrictors off. I've actually changed the exhaust system. So if I come around here, this is a Yasuni Eco exhaust system. So it's not a sports. No, it is a sports exhaust. It's not a race exhaust. So you can get those full expansion chamber race exhausts for two strokes. That's not one of those, because I wanted this to be as reliable as I could make it. I didn't want to like go race tuning it and all this sort of stuff. I just wanted to de-restrict it basically. So that sports exhaust does add a little bit of power. Obviously it's more free-flowing than the original, but it does have a kind of, its internal design is designed to produce a tiny bit more power from the two-stroke engine, just not as much as a race pipe. Obviously I have changed the jetting in the carburetor to compensate for that. Took me a couple of attempts to get it right, because I wanted to get it perfect again for reliability. I didn't want to be running too lean or whatever. I just wanted to get it running nicely, which I have. I mean, this thing starts off the button now, which is great. So now it's got somewhere in the region of about 4.5 to 5 horsepower, and on the flat I've had this up to, near as makes no difference, 80 kilometers an hour, so about 50 miles an hour indicated. Now I know obviously a lot of people are going to be screaming right now saying, oh yeah, but you know, indicated on a scooter, it's always out, the speedo and everything else. Yeah, I know, it's fine, it doesn't matter. Realistic top speed, I don't know, 42, 43, whatever. Point being is it goes faster than it did when it was restricted. How fast it goes is irrelevant, because what we want this for is just poodling around the local area, going for like out for a coffee or something on a nice day. You know, we're not expecting to take this out on a motorway. In fact, around here there are no motorways, so it's not really an issue. You know, I just wanted to get this to, I mean, I wanted to de-restrict it. I wanted it to go faster than 45 k's an hour, but I didn't care how much faster. It was just, I'll de-restrict it and I will make it the best it can be in its stock form, albeit with that slightly sporty exhaust system. But ultimately, I wanted it to be stealth. I wanted it to look original, sound original. That exhaust is actually slightly quieter than the original, so I'm happy with that. So there you go. That's the bike. Now for the quick story. Actually, when I was looking for a scooter for the other half, I wasn't necessarily looking to buy one quite this early. What actually, in fact, happened was a contact of mine told me about this bike, and what had happened. This was bought by some guy back in. This is a 2007 bike. It was bought new in 2007 for his kids. They obviously ragged it around, and then they tried to make it go faster. And for some reason, because when I got it, the oil tank was actually missing. So I think when they tried to make it go faster, one of the things they tried to do was reduce the weight by removing stuff, not quite understanding how a two-stroke works. They obviously removed the oil tank, but they didn't pre-mix the fuel. So anyway, long story short, the piston and cylinder were completely fried. So then what happened was this ended up going to, I think, his cousin, who took the whole thing apart to have a look, see if he could fix it, decided it wasn't worth bothering with, and just left it in pieces in his woodshed for, I can't remember how many years they said it was there. So then I came along and took it off their hands. It was dirt cheap, obviously, because Chinese scooters obviously are going to be cheap secondhand anyway, but this one was in pieces and obviously the engine was blown up, so not great. Now, for most people, the idea of getting a Chinese scooter and getting it back on the road, especially if the engine's blown up, would probably not be worth it. Not because of the parts. Parts for these things are dirt cheap. It's the labour is the problem. Because at the end of the day, if you have to pay someone else to do the work, if you don't have the confidence or the, I don't know, whatever to do it yourself, then you're going to have to take it to a garage, and of course they're going to charge the same to fix that as they are to fix a Japanese bike or scooter. And so for most people that might not be worth it. But for me, obviously, because I do the work for myself and because I get great joy out of doing the work, for me it was a bonus, because obviously the expensive part, the labour, is free because I'm doing it, and also I'm getting a lot of enjoyment out of it at the same time. Incidentally, if you guys want to see the condition of this bike when I bought it, if you head over to the Facebook page for A Very British Biker, you can actually see the before and after videos. I took pictures. I've got pictures of it in the shed where it was found, and then a few of it in pieces, and then obviously the finished result. So anyway, yeah, I got this thing back here. Had a bucket full of parts to try and work out what goes where, because obviously no instructions, and the previous guy that had taken it apart had just sort of chucked all the screws in a box and that was it. So I had to sort of piece it all back together, and then obviously get on with cleaning it, because where it had been sat for so long, obviously everything was covered in dust, it was all grimy, the fuel system, I had to take the tank and everything all out and clean it all out, because it was just full of gunk. The carburetor was full of some green stuff, so yeah, that all needed properly cleaning out. I went ahead and replaced all of the fuel lines, obviously the filters, replaced the oil lines as well. Obviously got a replacement oil tank and put that back in there, and then just went over everything. One thing I was quite pleasantly surprised at, though, was the fact that the transmission was in such good condition, because although the engine had been blown up, obviously the transmission, variator, clutch and everything else were actually immaculate. And in fact, so I've actually put quite a few kilometers on this myself since I've got it, but it's only done about, what is that, 3,588 kilometers, which is not that much. And obviously now it's got a brand new piston and cylinder on it, so it's should hopefully last a decent amount of time, especially because these Chinese bikes, they're not that bad. Obviously they're not as good. They can't, it's all about the abuse they can take. I mean, obviously they're a bit more fragile than a Japanese bike, so if you properly abuse it and don't look after it, then obviously it's going to blow up a lot quicker than a Japanese bike taking the same abuse. But if you look after it, and which I do, because I enjoy being out here in the garage and tinkering with things, so I do go the extra mile when it comes to maintenance. So it should last pretty well, especially because the engine's so simple, a little two-stroke. It's not you know, it's nothing complex to fix if it goes wrong, which is quite good. So yep, I got it all back up and running, and then as I say, I just went the extra mile with everything. I went ahead and replaced the oil in the suspension forks. I replaced the brake fluid. I mean that was a safety thing anyway. And I just went over everything, made it as good as I can, and now, like I say, it's beautiful. It's got a brand new piston and cylinder on it. It's been running now. I've had it for a little while on the bike, so I've obviously run it in. It starts off the button, it goes. It's got a surprising amount of zip to it, considering how tiny that little piston and cylinder actually are. I've not gone big bore or anything. It's completely standard with the exception of that exhaust. So, but yeah, as I say, de-restricted on the flat. I've had this up to about close to 80 kilometers an hour. It's about 78 kilometers an hour I've had it up to. As I say, I don't know what that is. 78, 80. I think at one point I hit 81 on the speedo. As I've said, maybe not accurate, but if it does 43, 44 in real life, then perfect. So there you go, guys. New little toy, or rather my partner's new little toy. Hopefully you enjoyed this little video. If you did, please do give it a like. If you haven't already, please do go check out my other videos as well. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you again soon.